Hi, welcome to our channel. This is Thai Food for Tater. I'm Alicia. Once again, we are doing a Crocheting Auntie video. I'm trying out a few new things with the cameras and audio, so hopefully this series of videos continues to get better quality as we go along. So I'm just going to continue from what we were doing yesterday. Working on my new blanket. So for those of you who maybe hadn't watched the previous video, I'm starting a very new project. And like very new. In fact, I know I said on the last video, hopefully when you see me next time, I'm gonna have a little bit more, thinking I would record in a few days, but I decided to just, kind of go the next day. And so I only got, maybe an extra row in after the video from yesterday. So we'll just continue that. And also have a little more discussion about crocheting. So yesterday we were talking about, picking different crocheting needles, the style, the stitch type, the yarn type, even the different types of projects that you might do. And in fact, so this is going to be a project or a blanket for someone for Christmas, which I think is like kind of a standard that we all do, birthdays or Christmas, doing some kind of interesting crochet project, a blanket, a scarf, maybe you do hats or socks or something. I feel like that's kind of the traditional idea, but I have an idea for a baby blanket. And one of my friends is pregnant, and she's going to be having a baby shower soon. And so I figured I should get started on that sooner rather than later. And so I might take a little break from this, to work on this for a few days, and then this weekend, go to the store and get some yarn. And in fact, I usually buy my yarn at the store. Typically like Joann's or Michael's. I know other stores have Walmart sometimes. I think some actually, I think this yarn, the yarn that I was showing you guys on the previous one, this is from Walmart. I picked that up last week. I don't go to Walmart that often, so. But definitely an interesting variety of stores will have yarn. But I'm like most of us, I buy so many things on Amazon, and I was looking at yarn on Amazon, and I was kind of disappointed from what I was seeing, at least in my initial search. So if any of you have had luck ordering skeins of yarn on Amazon, shoot me a link or something, because it seemed as if it was stuff I recognized, like Red Heart or other similar brands. I'm like, oh, I know that brand, but it was way overpriced if I just wanted like 2 skeins or something. So I'm like, I could just go to the store or order from, like Joann's website or something. Because usually, you go to Amazon because the deals are a bit better. Either like the bulk price might be better, or just individual, or just more variety in color or something like that. And I wasn't really having a lot of luck. So if any of you have had luck, maybe a certain site or a certain, certain type of yarn, brand of yarn, like definitely let me know, because I'll send some, I'll give them some good business, I'm sure. Myself and other people I know. I think color variety is definitely a thing. At Walmart, when I was there the other day, they had a couple of colors that I maybe didn't see at Michael's when I had been there a couple days before that. But I would say that, I don't know, I don't really see as much variety as I used to. I mean, maybe it's just perception, but I remember when I was younger, like teenage years, early 20s, and going to like Joann Fabrics, and there just being so much yarn. And maybe it's because you're younger and smaller, things look bigger and better, I don't know. But now when I go in, at least to the stores around here where I live, that the variety seems to be like less. It's decreased. Like the number of rows that would be, yarn or knitting or crocheting related seems to definitely be smaller. So maybe it's not as popular anymore. I don't know. But the variety, I would say, of color has definitely isn't what I would hope it would be like in store, Yeah, I went on the Joann website, Joann's fabric website, to look at the yarn, and I had the app, and I don't know if any of you have had this experience with certain apps being like really user friendly and other apps just not being. And I was having a difficulty with the Joann's their app, and I don't know, it's probably just me, it's probably user error, it's probably me. But yeah, I was trying to search for stuff and it seemed as if the search I don't know what the word I'm thinking is, like the search part of their app was just, maybe my keywords weren't working, but I was just having an issue with it, so I kind of gave up because of that. I was like, I'll just try Amazon, or I'll just go to a store. I don't know, I'm sure it's an easy fix, but yeah. I'm very excited about this project. It's going to be one of the bigger blankets I've done. I mean, I guess on camera it doesn't look quite as big. I mean, this, now that I'm kind of doing it, I'm like, yeah, this is definitely like going to be a nice sized blanket. You know, you can kind of see here. I don't know if the camera's giving it the right angle, but usually I've done blankets recently. You know, I usually do a couple blankets a year for someone for Christmas or something, but I would say that the last handful that I've done have been a little more like throw size, like not super small, but I've done bigger blankets in the past. And so I've never done, I think maybe one time I did a really, really big one that would have fit on like almost as like a bedspread, like really big for a bed. But it's been quite a few years since I've done a big project like that. But I've definitely done a handful of larger blankets, but like I said, mostly in the last few years it's been like throw size, which is fine because I mean, it's still a blanket, and it can be, it's still functional, like, for one person, you know. But I'm kind of thinking for this one, it's going to be more, you know, like maybe two people could share it, or one person, but it's extra big, and, you know, you can get all snuggly with, you know, probably with the dogs, you know. I mean, this one's not going to be for me, but and this is something I think that we as crocheters or knitters do. I have like so much yarn because I have all these projects in mind that I want to do, you know. So I have these probably like 8 or 10 skeins of like 2 or 3 different colors that I've been wanting to do for a blanket for me. But I've had these colors for probably like 3 years because I'm always doing a project, you know, for someone else, you know. So eventually one day I'll get to those colors. It'll be fun. It's like a hot pink. And then I think it's, is this the right term? Variegated? Or like the color, it kind of fades to like different colors throughout the skein. And it's got like black and pink and like green, like it's like neon colors. You probably have seen what I'm talking about. It's like black with like a bunch of neon colors, and it'll be fun. It'll be like super bright and colorful when I'm done with it. Make a cute little, you know, blanket somewhere in my apartment. I definitely have a lot of different styles of blankets that I've done, you know, earthy colors or bright colors. And then, of course, depending on the person I'm making something for, like their favorite color, you know. Yeah, for the baby blanket, I'm going to have to get some, you know, that like the soft yarn, the baby soft yarn. And the baby is going to be a boy, or is a boy, you know, not born yet. But like, I don't want to do like traditional blue. I don't think that that's really what they want for like their color scheme. In fact, I think they painted the baby room some like yellows and greens or something, or they were going to, at least. I haven't seen it yet. So maybe I'll pick like a really pretty green. Green's my favorite color. Everyone thinks it's pink because like I just have a lot of pink. I wear pink a lot. I have pink everything. Pink is a fun color, especially like bright pink. And especially in the last couple of months with all the Barbie stuff coming out because of the movie, it's like pink, pink, pink. I love it. I love pink. But green, I would say green is like my actual favorite color. I don't know. I have a lot of green stuff too, but I think the pink is just more like obvious and in your face. It's definitely like, you know, one of my favorite colors, but I love green. I love like the earthiness of green. It reminds me of nature. I love that part. My mom's favorite color is green too. I think that might have probably influenced it a little bit. Yeah, I had a green blanket. That was actually when I was saying a few minutes ago, the large project I did was that big blanket. It was a green blanket I made for myself, and it was like 4 different color greens. Yeah, whatever happened to that blanket? Because that was in my 20s. I remember crocheting that in my early 20s, like 21, 22. And that was like 20 years ago. Lived in a few different places since then, so I'm sure it got lost in the shuffle. But I honestly, I don't remember, but I feel like maybe I gave it to someone, like one of my cousins has it or something now, something like that. I don't remember. It's interesting, but I remember what it looked like too. That's funny. When I was, if you're familiar with our channel a little bit more than just these crocheting videos, I did a whole series. You can find it on our channel. There's a whole playlist dedicated to me discussing my difficulties with going through cancer and cancer treatment. And if you want to look into that, it's a whole series, and I go into a lot of detail, and each video is kind of dedicated to a certain part of that process. But why it reminded me was going through like chemotherapy and recovering from surgery, spend a lot of time resting, in bed, or even at like the infusion center. And I did a lot of crocheting at that time. I mean, when I wasn't exhausted. Sometimes I was even too exhausted to crochet. But it was something I could do in bed, because a lot of times I couldn't really do much but just lay around, But crocheting, I remember making a few small, like, throw-sized blankets during that time, and I would just whip them up in a couple days, or at least less than a week. And my mom because she was visiting me, she would be here like 2 weeks and gone 2 weeks. She was here when I was going through treatment. That was a few years ago. But she would be like, oh my gosh, you finished another blanket. Because I was making just small throw-sized ones, and if you're just sitting around and watching, Netflix for 2 weeks all day, pretty much only getting up to like maybe use the restroom or stretch or something, eat something. But even then I was probably just, some version of like in bed on the couch, something like that. And I would just be sitting here crochet. Use a slightly larger needle so I could get a bigger stitch and it would go faster. But I've got a couple of really cute blankets. I don't know, like I have actually, so I'm sitting in my front room right now. Oh, I did not make this. I bought this. It's so cute with the background. I bought this at the store, Five Below. If you were interested, super cute. But I've got actually my blanket, like my stack of some of my crocheted blankets right here. And I think, oh, this is the one I was just thinking of in my head that I made when I was recovering from surgery. So it's fairly long, but it's not very wide. So it's like perfect for like one person, it's perfect for one person. And the stitching, like you can probably see my face through that, right? Like the stitching is, I think I probably use like maybe a J or a K. A K? I think I used a K, but it might have been an L, I don't know. But I just had, actually for this one, I just had a bunch of random colors I had used for other blankets, but they all kind of went together. You can see I've got like a lavender, this bright purple, there's a white, it's like a white sparkly, then there's like this variegated, I hope that's the right word, I'm going to use it a few times, and I just found a bunch of random stuff, and I knew I didn't have enough for a really large project, but I had enough for a throw size. So I have a handful like this, that were fun and easy to do, one person, size perfect, but also really cute to like throw like on the back of your couch, and it's not going to take up a lot of room, just a cute little accent. So I love having these, and these are really good, like the dogs love these too, I know I talked about the other day that on the first video for Crocheting Auntie was the little doggy blanket that I made. And I've definitely made a handful of those over the years. Because like I have dogs, everyone I know, like all my good friends have dogs. And so like a lot of I think almost every friend except for maybe one new friend that I made in the last year, everyone else I've made at least one blanket for the dog. And I know one of my friends, like they're a couple, they have 3 dogs, and all 3 dogs got doggy blankets last year for Christmas. And that's always a fun project because, I remember for my Etsy shop when it was, Etsy is a whole discussion we could have. I'm sure for many of you crocheters and knitters, you have used Etsy, or you have stories about Etsy, like pros and cons, right? That's probably a story for another day, but I don't have an Etsy shop anymore, and I'm kind of debating what I want to do in terms of if I want to continue to sell or not. But for a time, I had Etsy, probably for quite a few years, and I definitely would sell stuff on on my shop. I had a lot of scarves were like my big thing around Christmas. I would sell probably like, 15, 20 scarves. And so throughout the year, I would just, because the scarf's so easy to make, different styles, different colors. You can whip those up pretty easy. Like in an afternoon, you could do at least one, maybe two, depending on how big they are. And so I would just, I had a bin that was full of all the scarves I make throughout the year, and I'd sell most of them around Christmas time. And, oh my God, there was a point. I think the point of the story was just scarves, like scarves. Oh yeah. So I was doing scarves all the time. And so for a couple years after that, I was like, I don't want to do any more scarves. I still have a bin full of scarves that, I don't have my Etsy shop anymore. So I'm debating what I want to do with them. And in fact, I might give a few away this year for Christmas. They're cute. And, I made them, but I'd like to kind of continue that. I think I've gone enough time not making scarves that I could get back into it, And also scarves are really good when you have a lot of leftover yarn from projects. You're like, oh, I have enough for like not a big blanket, but enough for a scarf. In fact, I have a blanket that I just completed, and I'm starting a second one, that it's just all of my leftovers. So if I had like half a skein left, I would probably use that for a scarf. But how you end up with like random, like you have maybe like, this much, like, a piece that's 2 feet long. And I guess you might like, I'll just throw that away. Or you might have a piece that's, 10 feet long, but it's not enough to do anything with in itself. But I started making a blanket of all of my remnants, and it was so cool because sometimes it'd be like maybe a whole row of one color, but the next row would be like 4 different colors, or there'd be a piece that was like only 2 inches wide that was just a particular color, and then I might have like 2.5 rows that were another color. So I made this huge, big blanket from all those leftovers. It took me, because I was only adding to it when I had the leftovers, so it was years and years of me just adding slowly to this blanket, and it's pretty cool looking. I started a second one because I made it pretty big, like moderate size, and I wanted to kind of start a second one, so I got a handful of rows into a second one. But that's always fun too, doing that. Finding new ways like not to waste anything, throw anything away. And like I said, you might think, oh, well, it would take forever. Like literally, I would say it was probably close to a decade of me with all the projects I've done and just adding slowly to it, But it turned out to be pretty cool. There's no like rhyme or reason to the coloring. I just, whenever I add leftover, I just add it to the next part. It was pretty cool. And I'd show you on camera, but like it's in my Etsy bin, my Etsy bin. So it's like in the storage closet right now. Maybe I'll take it out for the next video so you guys could get an idea of that. What else about crocheting? Oh, knitting. I crochet. I've crocheted for 35 years. I have never been a knitter. I don't know how to knit. I see people knitting like on TV or something. And I had one friend years ago who briefly was into knitting. And I know there's kind of this thing like knitters will say to crocheters, like, how do you only use one needle? Like, what are you doing with only one needle? And my question was never about the number of needles. It was like, how do you do anything without a hook to the needle? Oh, I've got an alarm going off in the background. Hold on. I'm back. That was just, I set a reminder for myself or something. What was I saying? Oh yeah, so I always wondered like what it was, how you did a project, how you manipulated the yarn in any real way without a hook. Because in crocheting, like the hook allows you to grab onto the yarn and do things with it. But I think in knitting, from what I've observed, I could be totally wrong, I think the needle is kind of there as, it's in a particular position as like an anchor, and you actually use your hands to move the yarn somewhat. I could be wrong, let me know. I don't think I want to learn a whole new craft, but you never know. And I'm sure for knitters, they're like, yeah, I like knitting. I don't know if I want to learn a whole new way of doing it and crocheting, Interesting. So I mentioned this on the previous video that I was going to do a lot of stuff with this particular project. So right now for the dark blue, I think I'm going to do a bigger section of the dark blue and then a little smaller section of the other ones. Like sometimes I'll rotate, like, you know, you just go like every 2 rows you switch to a different color, but this one I want to do kind of larger pieces. So I might do like 10 of the dark blue and then maybe like, you know, like 7 of this medium colored one and then like 5 or something of the sparkly, and then because, you know, the skeins are different sizes too, to kind of even out their use, you know. So I might do that. But also I want to do 3 different stitches. I think the most I've ever done in one project was like 2 different types of stitches. And I have like my go-to ones, you know, which is fine. But I think what I've started doing is like a shell stitch, for what I call a shell stitch, in the dark blue. And then I think I'm going to do a puff stitch in like that turquoisey, you know, bluish one, and then a fan stitch in the sparkly one. So if you're wondering what kind of stitches are those, I talked about this in the previous video. You know, I know a handful of stitches. I think there are so many stitch types and so many different patterns and designs you could do. I know some of the basics, and I kind of just stick to my my favorite ones, you know. But I think I was trying to remember, like, did I name them that in my head? Did my grandma name them that, and then that's just what we call them? I'm sure every family has, like, you might have a, you know, if it's been something that's been passed down from like grandmother to mother or something like that, that there might be like a family name you call a stitch or something. I don't know. But for us, the shell stitch, what I'm doing right now, is 3-in-1. It's a double stitch, but 3-in-1 skip 2. Really simple, 3-in-1 skip 2. You know, super simple. But the puff stitch, and I'm hoping with muscle memory when I get to that color I'll remember, but I'm trying to think how I did it. But it definitely looks like a kind of a puff ball as you go along, you know. But then the fan stitch, I think I named it that. It must be called something else, but a fan stitch is basically, it's the same idea as the shell stitch. It's just what I call a shell stitch. Actually, there might actually be another whole other stitch called a shell stitch, and I'm wrong. I don't know. That's what we called it in the family. But what I've called the fan stitch is just, it's 5-in-1 skip 4. 5-in-1 skip 4. So you get that whole fanning effect. Like, it's really cool looking. And it's also really, because it's just, I do a double stitch when I do it. It's really easy. And like I mentioned in the previous video, if you want to be, you know, watching, you know, something, or crocheting, multitasking, it's really easy to remember, you know, once you kind of start doing it. And I remember my grandmother figuring out these really complex stitches that she tried to show me a couple times, and I learned them enough to maybe do a project, and, you know, that was a long time ago. But now I don't really recall most of the really complex ones. But I remember because she would have to do these really complex patterns, and there was a couple where she would do, it would be some kind of like double stitch or triple stitch or something, and there would be every like so many you would pull down into the row below to kind of create this really cool effect, which was really cool. But she would have to, like, you know, sit there and count and stuff, or keep like a marker. And I mean, the pattern was incredible, so pros and cons, right? But I remember she had to be a little more like focused on the project, and I like to be a little more mindless, you know, like right now I'm talking and stuff, I'm doing this, like, or I could be watching TV or whatever, you know. And I don't have to really think about, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Like, even when you're doing the chevron pattern, you think, oh, you only have to really kind of pay attention and count for the first few rows. But I mean, you still, for me at least, I still have to verify everyone, like, fairly often, because you could be off and wonder, like, why is the chevron stitch kind of tilting? Oh, I miscounted 4 rows back, you know. So I still have to pay attention on that one and count, you know. So pros and cons to that one. But that's a really cool pattern, though. I mean, that's what we called it, the chevron, where it's like this, you know, like, do. I'm sure maybe there's a more technical term, or everyone has their own, like, family term or personal term for what that is, you know. I don't know. I haven't done a project with a chevron pattern in a long time. I'm trying to remember. Probably a couple years ago. Straight across, you know. Can't go wrong. I think with crocheting, like there are so many different ways you can enjoy that experience. You can make something super complex, be super creative, really into it, do all these amazing like patterns and designs and stitches, and it can get like it can get so complex. And some of these people I see like online and stuff, I'm like, oh my god, the talent is incredible. But then on the other end of it, it's just something you want to do just to kind of feel like you're being productive and creative. It's also very relaxing, and so maybe a super complex design might not be for you, or you might go back and forth with them too. I definitely have done some more complex things with crocheting, but I would say more often than not, it's just something really basic that I can just kind of do. And maybe the stitching or the design isn't super complex, but I'll do something really fun with the colors, so I can, still make it interesting. It's not going to be boring, but I can still multitask while I'm doing it, and it's not gonna, I don't have to stay super hyper focused on it, unless I want to, And I've seen this whole new trend. I'm like amazed. This whole new trend of people, of women really. I don't think I've seen any men, although could be out there. What's come across that I've seen has been women crocheting clothing, and like I have like a shirt, like a little tank toppy thing my grandma crocheted for me one year, and I kind of made something similar one time, and they're super cute, but that was never really anything I got into. And I started seeing these crocheters or knitters, I think it's mostly crocheting, where they're doing, like little tops and shorts or skirts or just sweaters and, tighter stitches or looser stitches, like bikinis. And I'm like, oh, halter tops, something that is like when I see them, what they've done, it doesn't look that difficult. I'm saying that it's probably really difficult, but like as a crocheter, I'm like, I could do that. I mean, I might have to learn, like I can tell they put a lot of effort in some of the patterning, like the pattern of the design of like the colors and stuff, but the pattern itself of what they're doing for like a halter top or something like is something I could probably figure out and do well. So I was thinking about that. I'm like, oh my gosh, I could do something, even just something simple like a cute like tank toppy thing, or like an oversized, t-shirty style, or like a poncho style would probably be, actually that would be super easy. I could do that. Oh, now I'm thinking about, I've got so many projects, and honestly, like my life is so busy, I don't even have time to probably even crochet one thing, let alone have like a list of things I want to crochet. I don't know. But it's one of those things you just do when you have the time. Like I just finished this book the other day that I've been, like I'll have times in my life where I'm reading all the time, and I get through a book like in less than a week easily, or a few days. But that was not the last few months. My life has just been really hectic, and so there was this one book though that I was slowly reading. I think I probably read a chapter every Sunday, and so it took me a few months, because I only read like a chapter a week. But I got through the book, and I was like, okay, I accomplished it. But at the time it seemed like, oh, I'm never going to finish this book because I really don't have time. It's just, finding a way to make time. So sometimes even for crocheting, like finding like, oh, I don't have a lot of time to sit down and actually do a major project, but you might have time to, like, if it's sitting by your couch every night, do like one row, and suddenly you're like, oh, I'm actually working on something, You can see that progress over time. It'd be slow, but I mean, it's the same thing with school. Like I'm working on my dissertation right now, and it was, I have a bachelor's, I have a master's, and I'm on year, I have to think about it, let me count. I'm in year 7 of my dissertation, or I'm sorry, my PhD program, which my aim is to be done, like by this time next year I'll be done, so less than a year. And it's doable, but it's one of those things like because I've done, like even after a master's you have to have a bunch of, like depending on the program, typically you still have to do a lot of coursework for your PhD. And then you have to do, like your exams and your proposal, and then you actually do your data collection, and then you write everything up. So I'm at that point, I'm kind of halfway still doing data collection and starting the writing process to kind of be in the right position in like 6 months, and then in about a year. So, but it's so daunting, and so I've had to just tell myself, like, some days I'm working, I don't really have time to get to it. Maybe like say like yesterday on Monday, I'm just at work, I'm busy. But if I just come home, and even if I just do 15 minutes of something, write 4 sentences or collect a little more data, it'll add up. And that's kind of the mindset, because there's no way I was going to sit down in like a week and do everything. It was impossible. But doing even 15 minutes, or one day, and then the next day being able to dedicate like 2 or 3 hours to it, you just have to do it in small increments, and you can see that progress as you go along, you know. It's so easy to get overwhelmed. My God, like, life can be overwhelming in general, but then even projects, something you're working on for work or school, or even just like something for fun, maybe a home project, and it seems so overwhelming. But if you think, okay, I'll just take it kind of one step at a time, then you'll get through it. And it's like easier said than done. And I think that's something like a lot of people say. Of course, you're one of those things I think that comes with being a little older. You're like, oh, it's kind of cliche, but it's actually really true, and it's really useful. So, you know. Well, I think it's been about a half hour on this one. I got to chatting a little bit, and you know, we've been crocheting this whole time, talking about crocheting. So I guess I will see you all on the next one, and you know, maybe I'll wait a few days so I can be a little further along. But the beginning of this is looking really pretty. It's sturdy, a nice, you know, a nice shell stitch coming along, and maybe the next time I see you, I'll be in the next color. We can really start to see this cool color pattern emerge. But otherwise, I'll see you guys on the next one.